official meeting. I want to welcome everybody that came for our art exhibit. Thank you, Mr. Donna Ethway, for putting this together. Some really impressive works here. We decided a couple months ago that our first meetings of the month we would highlight one of our programs here at school, and so tonight is obviously our art program. So I want to turn it over to Dr. Watson, who will say a few things.
So first of all, thank you all for coming. We are so incredibly proud of our students in Troy, who obviously are so talented, and this is just a small sampling of what our students are producing. I'd like to start by thanking and asking her to please stand up, Miss Cynthia Dodonna Nethaway.
Sure.
Stand up and give a little wave. Ms. Nethaway is our curriculum leader for art and works very hard to make sure that our students are participating in shows and our teachers are participating in training. Under her leadership, our participation in professional art associations has really exploded. So our teachers are attending workshops and conferences at the local level, the state level, even the national level. And when that happens with strong support from our board, our students benefit from all of that training. So I'd like to now ask all of the students who have a piece featured here tonight to please stand up and be recognized. Congratulations to all of you. Your work is very impressive. I think I was able to get a picture of every single student with his or her art piece. So if I wasn't able to do that, if you wouldn't mind staying for the budget presentation and working, I would do that at the end, or perhaps you can arrange with Ms. Dodonna Nethaway to have it done tomorrow. But we'd like to feature all of your work, including a complete list of all the artists and their grade levels on all of our social media platforms. And we have Mr. Lads, our communications specialist, is here tonight, and he's going to take all of that information and share it out with our community. And again, I just want to say how incredibly proud we are. If you don't realize this, our students' work has been featured this year in a number of shows. The Victorian Stroll, the annual school-wide art exhibits in all of our schools, the New York State Art Teachers Association legislative exhibit, the K-8 Empire exhibit. We have 3 middle school teams participating in Olympics of the Visual Arts this year, and 7 teams from the high school. Maybe just raise your hand if you're on the Olympic of the Visual Arts teams. Anybody here tonight? Well, we have 10 active teams on that. In addition, we have a number of juried art exhibitions where students were chosen to have their pieces featured in these shows, and they include the high school regional juried art exhibitions, also the Olympics of the Visual Arts. 5 art pieces were chosen for the 2021 Student Fence Show at the Art Center of the Capital Region, Saratoga Springs Satellite Reed exhibit at the Tang Museum, that was just last month. A 3D juried show, which is opening February 9th. Where is that, Ms. Dodonna Nethaway?
I believe it's...
Do you know where that one is?
I do.
Well, that one's coming up, so if you're free on the 9th and it's not snowy or cold, we can actually share those details.
It's at the Mahonison High School.
Mahonison High School. So we have some students with their pieces featured there. And we also have some PTA paint nights that have happened, some school-wide murals that are under construction, and a lot of, coming out of COVID, we talked a lot about student achievement and social emotional learning, and we have found through the arts that we have been able to incorporate the arts throughout the district in a lot of social emotional learning opportunities. So not just, the students who will have college credits in art when they graduate high school, but even our youngest learners who are doing art, throughout the day as part of their instruction, and also to cope with some of the social emotional work that's happening throughout the district. So again, one last round of applause for our students. You made us very proud, and parents, congratulations to you. Probably lots of practice pieces in the house. I know it's the same thing with music, lots of hours of practice in order to produce the final product. So thank you for your support always.
Thank you so much, Dr. Watson. We'll give you a 1-minute pause. You can certainly welcome to stay. We've got Senator McDonald here. I'll be giving a budget presentation. It's all really thrilling stuff. But if you want to go, you have 1 minute to.
Is there anybody who didn't get their picture taken? Want any of the students? We got you all? Okay.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
coming.
much.
I don't know if it was you or me, John, but one of us didn't want to hear it.
I think I know what it is.
Take a guess. Far enough?
Got it. Okay, all right. Well, I didn't want this to be. Okay. Give me that.
My money's going, right?
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone.
They want to see the art stuff. Purposely wait till the art show is over to come in? I'm going to tear it downstairs.
Right now, it's public.
Yeah.
Public input on agenda and non-agenda items. Please step up to the microphone, introduce yourself, give us your address, and go along the guidelines that are stated on our agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Right now, I'd like to introduce, see, you're first man up. So, I'd like to introduce our Assemblyman, John McDonald.
Well, thank you, and first of all to the board, thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and to the administration as well. I guess I haven't lost my knack. John announces I'm here, and the third room. It's actually, Adam will remember this, even though he hardly ever came to our own common council meetings back in the day when he was one of my department heads, but, you know, actually, to be honest with you, when there's not a lot of people there sometimes, as much as there's a lot of good to talk about and serious matters, sometimes not too many people is a good thing. It means that people recognize the good work that you're doing. So, once again, thank you. And I represent I have 8 different school boards. It's a little bit complicated, but a lot of diversity in difference between East Greenbush and Waterford and Troy and Albany. Board members are really being tested, and so is the administration during this difficult time. It's not lost on a person like myself. I meet with 3 different BOCES. You're part of Questar. Meet with Capital Region, of course, with Wishy up in Warren, Washington, Saratoga, and a lot of strange things going on out there, folks. And we got to buckle down and just keep putting our nose to the grindstone. Budget-wise, I've been coming pretty much almost 10 years now, I think, John. And this is actually one of the few good years to come. It looks like things, at least financially, resources are being provided. Of course, now that you have resources, you have to actually make decisions. Sometimes there weren't a lot of decisions to make, so I know that you've got a capable team here to help guide you, and obviously hear from the public on what to do or not. It's great to see art on display here. You know, my first couple of years, all we talked about back when Gavin Illumination Adjustment was around was how programs like art and music were being cut. And I have to be honest with you, I thought I was actually in the gallery. This is talent here. That or I just don't know what I'm talking about, but I know it's talent. And it's great to see, and anybody who can spell that teacher's name should be on top of the spelling. What's her name?
Cynthia did Hathaway.
You got to send that to me, because that's
Okay.
really up there. That's spelling bee
You want me to get
material.
your picture in front of the art?
Yeah, there you go. So, you know, like I said, for the budget perspective, which is always a big issue, for the most part, significant increase. We keep trying to push money into the district at the highest speeds. And so therefore, some of the attributes of the community that we sometimes lament with actually help you in regards to driving the resources. We are going to be pushing more money into the community schools effort, which has always helped districts like Troy. Adam and I go back and forth on the nuances of the whole charter school reimbursement, which is always a challenge. Troy's been in a very unique position in some aspects, just like Albany with high percentages. But I will tell you that the charter school tuition historically has started to become an issue even in some of the small districts. The only good thing is, as much as we are putting in increases of significant measures to public schools, the non-public schools, and the charters are also seeing an increase, but it's not coming at the expense of the local school districts. That's something that I learned after about 5 or 6 years fighting it out when we dealt with the tuition and the chargebacks, that we went to the speaker and our leader and said, we got to change this because it's putting the public schools against each other, and at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about the kids, right? And that's what we need to focus on. Usually I would be talking about how we're going to pull back on the governor's proposal to deal with your expense-driven aids. That's not happening this year. We're really whittling down the list of issues. I think back my first couple of years, we'd have like 10 or 15 agenda items and things, and slowly but surely, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, we've been able to whittle away at a lot of them. Some of them were more administrative, but they were important in the long haul. Now we're focusing on a couple things. I mean, quite frankly, the only issue I'm hearing consistency, and it's probably not from local districts, but it's from the BOCES, is the CTE cap, for the salary of the CTE cap, which has been languishing at $30,000 a year for the last 20 years, I think. So that's something we'll be looking on. Another important aspect that may be important here, although from what we're talking about, I don't think it applies. You know, right now, $100,000 is your limit for projects, and there's a push to go to 250 that you don't have to go up to public. So that's something that I think there's an opportunity to advance that a little bit this year, because there's a recognition with supply chain issues, with workforce issues, and getting people going to labor trades, that we have to be cognizant of the fact that there's just going to be an increase. And at the same token, it's kind of silly to go to the voters for $125,000 when you have a lot of tight procurement rules to guide you through the process. So I don't really have a lot more, and I don't want to, you know, get away from the whole budget presentation. But as always, President Wager-Brown's, I open it up to you and the board if you have any questions, or the superintendent.
Well, I just, before the questions, I'll just say, I think everybody knows John's been fantastic. Most of the time we've been dealing with him, we've been begging for more money, we've been telling him the charter school issue, which he was directly involved in. We have a capital project thing right now that we're getting his help with. But you know, last year and this year we're in a different spot financially, which I'll be talking about in a minute. But John has been fantastic and you know, accessible and super supportive. So I just thank you for that.
And according to what you read, you're probably going to see more of me in Troy, because my footprint in Rensselaer County is going to be expanded dramatically to the whole city of
The
Troy.
Times Union this morning, if you didn't see it, there's a redistricting proposal. It's not
Yeah.
approved yet, right?
It's going to be approved
And then
tomorrow.
John
The one nice thing in our house, when the bill goes on the agenda, we already know we got their votes.
so he'll have all of Troy. I mean, he's been supporting us already, but he'll have a bigger portion of our district, which would be great.
My time in Lansingburg now counts, because I've been up in Lansingburg a lot too, so it works there. And we're going to add East Greenbush as well in its totality. Usually I've been meeting with East Greenbush, but it's only for North Greenbush. So it's good, and Senator Breslin unfortunately losing Troy.
Yeah, he does.
But he'll still have a presence in Rensselaer
I'll
County.
go make one last visit to him.
Yeah, he'll demand that.
It's good that we have somebody representing us that knows our district, that knows our kids, knows what we're going through, knows our tax base.
Yep.
And the problems and the issues that we're having. I've been here listening to you for the year you've been here, so I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And it's nice to have you here with the stress, with not the stress that's usually behind you, in front of us,
Right.
you know, so that is nice. It's nice.
It's time for good things to happen.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
and I thank you tremendously.
Anybody else?
Just thank you very much.
Hey, my pleasure. No,
Thank
no
you.
thanks. Thank you. You're the ones doing the work for all the great pay, even the benefits. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take off and move on, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, Mr. Carmelo will talk to us about our budget.
Okay, thank you. I think last year I did all sitting down. I think I'll stand up again. That's all right with everybody. So, I mean, John just said it's a whole different aura than what we're used to. Even last year, at this time last year, remember that 20% cut was being talked about and almost being anticipated. We were looking at, when we were, Adam and I were talking again at this point last year, talking about trying to find $5 million worth of cuts. You know, and then the federal stimulus money came and the phase-in, that kind of changed the tune. So we're starting this year where we ended last year, where financially we're in a much better place. So I start like I always do, the Tri-City School, I'll just keep moving, I guess. Tri-City School District will provide a strong educational, social foundation to graduate all students, college and career ready. You know, it's been really challenging times over the last 2 years with all the quarantines and the remote learning and all the things that we're dealing with every day on top of, you know, regular things that we've always dealt with. This is becoming harder, but the staff has really stepped up, and the administration, and just super proud of all that's going on to make this reality. So the unique and challenging times continue, not really fiscally challenging anymore, we'll see in a minute, or I just mentioned, but the challenging times are still here. We hope they're fading away. If you saw Governor Hochul's message yesterday, I think it was, since the beginning of January, there's been a 92% drop in cases, you know, positivity. So, you know, she said it looks like the winter surge is ending. You know, she was careful to, you know, say she wants to still be, you know, careful about changing too much stuff, which makes sense at this point, at least for the next couple of weeks. But it looks like the trend is in the right direction. But it doesn't make, you know, what we're doing every day less challenging, right? We still have kids who have come to us this year that hadn't been in school in a year and a half, that came to us with some real mental health issues from that time away, and some real getting used to being back into the routine. So it's certainly been a challenging year, and those challenges continue. Almost 2 full years, the uncertainty still remains. Again, not really the fiscal uncertainty anymore, but just the uncertainty of will there be another variant? Will things you know, go back next winter? I mean, how much longer are we going to have to deal with all of the things that we've been dealing with? But we continue to be proud. I will speak for myself here, but I know it's the district office as well, and the board. We're so proud of everything that's happening throughout the district, so proud of how everybody stepped up over the last 2 years. A lot of administrators in the room today, they've worked so hard to overcome all the things that we've been dealing with, and the teachers have been so great. When I talk to other superintendents, or you know, Donna's on with the other assistant superintendents for curriculum, and they're talking about arguments that they're having with their staff and their teachers in their districts not wanting to do stuff. In fact, Adam today was talking about a district, I won't name it, that this whole 2 years, if kids were out, there was never any synchronous learning. You know, it was just packets and trying to catch up, and even when you were in one day, out the next, there was nothing for you to do other than wait till you get back. So things that we did here we're really, really proud of, and you know, want to make sure our staff and our administration, our teachers really know how proud. And we're committed to keep doing what's necessary to build on those successes and ensure we meet the needs of all of our students, again, back to that mission statement. And that's what this budget is, and that's what a budget always is, it's your priority statement, it's your statement of what is important to you, and that's what we're going to be doing over the next 2 months. The process is the budget calendar, which the board approved at the January 19th meeting. Our Citizens Advisory Committee, Mr. Wooten, thank you for rejoining us. We have 2 more possibilities that weren't available tonight, but hopefully by next time we'll have our full 3 that we usually have. Again, with the finances not being dire, there's still some decisions to make, right? So there's still some things that we'll be talking about, and it's always great to have the input of our Citizens Advisory Committee. Program review and data-driven decisions, that's throughout the district, that's every single day. We're always trying to figure out which programs are working for kids, which ones are not, which ones need to be tweaked, which ones need to be overhauled. So that happens throughout. And then when we get to December and January, we really start to get into the budget conversations. So we've already met with all the principals and all the department heads about things that they think they need for their buildings and or departments. And again, it's always based on what they think kids need to be more successful, right? So that we can get every kid to the finish line, like the mission statement says. So we've gotten all those, all that input from the administrators. The cabinet will get together and make a list like we always do, and we'll again base those decisions on our data and also base them on what's best for kids. And a comprehensive and thorough budget analysis. Again, it's a year-round process. Most of the time in my 10 years doing this, as I did that first year when Dr. Howell was here, that budget analysis is trying to trim where we can, cut where we can, and all of that. We're not really needing to do that, although we still do that kind of analysis all the time, because if something's not working, then we want to take that money, even if we don't have to cut it, we can take that money and cut that piece and use the money more effectively somewhere else. So that analysis still happens even in good times. Still 2 lenses like we always talk about, right? When you're making a budget, you want that budget to be educationally sound. What do all our students need to be successful? The mission statement that we just talked about, what staffing and programs do we need for the students to be the most successful that they can be? What supports do students need? I mentioned earlier, after a year and a half away from school, we had a lot of kids come back and had more needs than ever. And so the supports that we've added are really helping that right now. But that's part of being educationally sound, right? Every kid needs something different, and making sure we're giving whatever that student needs for that person to reach their full potential. And it's academic achievement. We're always talking about the whole child. We're always trying to make sure that we're growing great citizens too. But our main focus is learning and teaching, and so our academic achievement is obviously also paramount. So how do we fully support all our students going forward? At the same time as you're being educationally sound, you want to be fiscally responsible, right? We want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, mindful of our overburdened taxpayers. The city has also got some money from the federal government. You see number 4 on there. We have good state and federal money, which we'll get to, what the city also did. But our taxpayers historically have been overburdened, so we want to make sure as things get better now, we also keep them in mind and make sure we're letting them share in some of the good fortune. Continue to search for other funding sources. That's our grants and our funded programs, and we do a great job coming up with money for that. We've been under the tax cap for the last 9 years, and I'll have that slide in a minute. I just said the state and federal money. There was a budget, a capital conference webinar today. Part of it was the state budget presentation, which I listened to. And they were talking about the federal stimulus money, and we'll talk about the last 2 bullets there, and we'll talk about it later on too as well. Trying to make a long-term financial plan, being strategic about how we're spending that federal money. And one of the things they said, which I think I said last year, certainly something we've been talking about at Cabinet, the combination of that federal money, which is a lot of money for us, right, low 20 million, and also the phase-in of the foundation aid which for us is about 4 million extra this year. And that foundation aid is long-term, that will stay, right? So as the federal money goes away, we just have to be very careful, very mindful of how we're funding things and what things are dropping off and then what things are going to turn into the general fund money with the additional foundation aid. So the combination of those two makes it a little better. The timing is really good, but there's still a lot of planning that's going to have to go in so that when the federal money's gone, and we talked last year about this, that we're not faced with a fiscal cliff. So we're on that already, but just want to make sure that the board and the community are aware that that's certainly something that has to not be forgotten. I always leave these in, and so we'll go through them quickly because it's not new information. Remember, 2 springs ago there was no state assessments, and then last spring there was like a watered down one-day state assessment that was kind of optional, and then even when the results came out, the commissioner said you can't really compare them to anything. So I just left up our old stuff, which was up to 2019, just to remind the board and the community, how sustained that growth has been. There's our ELA 3 through 8 state assessments. There's our math. It's just been continuously growing, and we're really confident that that trend would have continued and did continue last year. But again, it's hard to compare with the way the tests were. But we'll be ready. Dr. Watson was on a meeting just this week with state ed. Their waivers from the federal government were denied. So it looks like, at least as of today, there will be state assessments in the spring. So we'll have our data to see how that happened after the pandemic. And then maybe even more so for the Pride is our graduation rates. So that's the class of 2020. Class of 2021, which was last June, is not released yet. I talked to our data guy, Tarek, today, just to see if he could just do a rough estimate. It's not released and it's not official, and he said he thinks that, looking from the numbers, that will be even a little bit higher than the 90%. So certainly I will share that when it comes out, and I'll be proud to do that. But that's an incredible number and something we're so proud of. I say it every time, but worth saying again, that that's a testament to Mr. Mariano and the teachers and administrators at the high school, but also the whole district. That's a whole district accomplishment. Certainly, Tri-High School can't get kids to graduate if they're not prepared once they get there. So the whole district should be proud of that.
Do I live 95?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to be that high. Soon.
3 years.
And then something we're also really proud of is our black students, our African American students. You see there in the class of 2020 was 85%. Comparing that to the state African American group at 78, and the similar district as ours is 76. So again, something we're really, really proud of, that we're rising above with our overall population, but also with our black student subgroup. That's just more of the same from this past year, comparing us to the state and to districts similar to ours in all the different subgroups. And you can see we're the rightmost purple one, and so just in every single group we're higher than the state and much higher than districts that are similar to ours. So proud of these results. How do we sustain that progress, build on our successes? How do we ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students? How do we maintain our environment of continuous improvement? We're always trying to get better. Again, going back to that mission statement, right? If it's 90%, again, super proud of that. If it ends up being 91 or 92, so proud of that. But it's still not 100. We're still missing some kids throughout the years. And so how do we make sure we're always trying to improve? And so that's what this budget is going to be about. I thought it was important to talk about the things we've added this year, and certainly this is not new for the board or the administrators, but it was pretty inspiring for me to put that all on one slide, and that's just some of them. I couldn't fit them all. One of the ones that, as we were talking through this in cabinet, Dr. Watson gave me increases in the art and music programs, which I shouldn't have taken out, but I just left it off. And then you see the work here that Assemblymember McDonald referenced to. That's really impressive, incredible artwork that's in front of us. So that's on there as well. I just kind of want to go through these because these are intentional targeted additions, mostly through the federal stimulus money. But again, going back to what I was saying before, in order to sustain this after the federal stimulus money is going to carry us for a couple more years, but at some point we're going to have to start, some of them will be reduced and weaned off, and some will go to the general fund with the phase-in of the foundation aid, and some will be combinations of other things. So the social workers, that was the first one I put there because I think it was the main one. We talked about the mental health issues that kids are coming back with, and adults with all the issues they faced over the last 2 years. And so we added, I believe it was 8 social workers, I should know it, but I think that's what it was. Will we be able to keep 8 4 years from now? Probably not. But that's where we'll, as social workers over the next few years retire, sometimes we won't replace them, sometimes we'll move it so that it's coming from the added foundation aid money. But that's a perfect example of things that we think we need right now for the kids for what they're facing, and then maybe 3 years from now we'll need it a little bit less. Same with the elementary co-teaching model. That turned out to be really a win. I mean, I know it's only February, but halfway through the year, that's been really, really a great model. Remember what we did there. Instead of just hiring and having to add sections and finding rooms in the building and doing all of that, we have 2 teachers in many of our elementary classrooms with class sizes that are still, good sizes, nice low teens, high teens class sizes. 2 adults in there, so the individual attention that our kids are getting has really been great. English second language teachers, is that the new language? Is that what you
I think it's MLL now, multi-language learners.
They change it every year, so. But those are critically important. In fact, in the meetings that we have with our principals, at least 2, I think it might have been 3 teachers have asked for more support in that program. So, in fact, we'll be asking the board this Friday's report, right? We have some Afghan refugees, and we have some additions that I think we need to address this year in that. But we have some already that were added, and that's something again going back to helping all kids, be the best that they can be and achieve their ultimate level of success. The re-engagement tutors, that was something the board approved last spring. Again, same thing in mind. We ended up going through all summer with them and then going through this school year. Those are adults that are already working in our district that are having one-on-one relationships with kids afterward to help them with their homework, to do book studies, to do other things. And sometimes it was just to re-engage the kids, just to have someone to talk to. And it's really, really given us some great impact. So we've continued that this year. Some technology things. Attendance improvement specialists, I can't talk about the impact yet because we just finally were able to hire a few of them. We got 3 of them hired this past month. So hopefully we'll be talking soon about the impact that they're having. We got liaisons in every building. We got equity liaisons in each building. We got college and career exploration liaisons in each building, and getting great work out of that group. Coaches at pre-K, brand new, and coaches at the middle school that were doing great until they bailed on Ian.
Summer's here.
I thought she was here. Hi, Summer. How you doing? Mr. McShane's looking for coaches. Embedded support from Teachers College, which again, we're getting great impact from that reading and writing literacy program and our new Eureka Math program, and the attendance retention bonus, which again, maybe too early to see, but it seems to already be having the positive impact that we were hoping. So we'll have more data as the year goes along, but remember that everybody will get their first bonus later this month, and then next November, if they're still with us and they've had great attendance, they get $3,000 at that time. So that has, again, already made a difference in the daily attendance that we're seeing. So we're really, really excited about that. And again, the kids are the ones that benefit when our staff is here.
John,
Yes.
just going back to that.
Sure.
I think one of the key things that you said is keeping data on everything, because 3 years from now, we're all gonna be fighting over what's gonna be kept and what's not. So I think that's a key thing, because, I mean, there's a couple things up there that I don't wanna see leave.
Yeah.
And
And that'll be, you're right, and that'll be the hardest part, right? So, you know, like social workers, I mean, certainly social workers won't leave. I mean, we were up to the point, and, you know, you were a big proponent of social workers back when we first brought them, and we had one of these bills, or we had a couple district-wide, we had none.
right,
I mean,
we were zero.
That's not many years ago, that's
It was.
probably 5 or 6 years ago, we had 0 social workers in the Troy School District, which was unbelievable,
Yeah,
really.
8 years ago.
Huh?
When I
8?
arrived, this is
Was
my
it
8th year when I came
Okay,
here.
so longer than I thought, but still, I mean, I was superintendent, you were on the board, and we had 0 social workers. And then we had 2 or 3 district-wide, and then we had 1 in each building, and then we had 2 in each building, and now we have a lot. So when the stimulus money goes away, I mean, today I'm saying we can't afford the number we have right now, but we do know the benefit of having social workers, so we'll have to figure out. And that will come from data, it will come from a lot of, you know, review and analysis, and we'll keep the board updated on all that. But there, you know, all of that is great stuff. I mean, there's nothing there that we're not getting impact from, and so we'll have to figure out other funding sources to keep things, and, you know, just keep an eye on all of it. But that's a great one. So John just did a little bit of this, and there wasn't really much to talk about in the executive proposal because it's really great news. And remember, it's usually the governor's executive proposal, which comes out in January, and then John would come, and Adam and I would go down and see John and see Neil Breslin and talk about our needs. And there were years where we brought them stacks and stacks of letters about what our kids need and the funding shortfall that Troy is facing, and districts like Troy. And, you know, we did that whole thing every year. And then by April, oftentimes the Senate and Assembly had been able to add some, not as much as we needed, but they were always able to get the governor to bump it up a little bit. Well, now the governor has started with $2.1 billion increase. The governor, Hochul, has started with a $1.6 billion increase in foundation aid alone, right, which is her commitment to the 3-year phasing, right? So last year in the state budget, the final state budget, there was wording that there was a 3-year phase-in of foundation aid. But until we saw it this year, you know, you never really know. So in her own executive budget, she talks about year 2 of that foundation aid phase-in. So for us, that's almost $4.3 million increase in foundation aid from last year. The way the formula is working, if you're underfunded, which we were, remember, the slide always for 6 or 7 or 8 years in a row, the slide was, we're 9 million underfunded, now we're 10 million underfunded, now we're 11 million underfunded, right? So that number 4292828 represents we're now double that underfunded. So you get 50% of it this year, and then the following 50% next year, and then we'll be fully funded after year 3, which will really be great stuff. You know, and again, that's not stimulus money, that's going to be foundation aid. They did talk this morning on that webinar about adjusting the foundation aid formula. I don't know a lot about what they're even, I mean, that's a really complicated formula, so I don't even know when they say that, I think that's probably 2 or 3 years out, because that's not something you just can do on a whim. So my guess is, and they did say it today, they'll get through the phase-in, they'll let that play out for a year or 2, and then they'll see if there's tweaks to the formula that we'll need. But any tweak to the formula, in my opinion, would help us because you know, the high needs districts, you know, that has become just about everybody now talks about that. That used to be something we had to say ourselves to get people to listen. Every district is guaranteed a minimum of 3% on their foundation aid amount. So that's not something we ever were really excited about. Last year it was 2, the year before I think it was a half. When you give everybody an increase, there's some districts, as you know, I think it was like 45% of districts in the state, at least last year, are already at what that formula says they should have. right? So if they're already at their number, you know, why are they getting a 3% increase? If you saw the numbers in the paper, they were there for a little while. We obviously get access to all of it. There's districts, very wealthy districts, that are getting 7, 8, 9% because of the way the formula works out. But you know, typically that would be what we're complaining to our you know, legislators about, but we're getting so much money ourselves that I think we're going to be in a good spot. And then John also mentioned the next line, fully fund expense-driven aids. Remember the last 3 or 4 years, Governor Cuomo was talking about combining, you know, the BOCES aid, the textbooks, the transportation. That's the main ones.
Almost all.
Huh?
Almost all.
Yeah. So he wanted to combine them all into one, and then, you know, run the formula or not run it anymore. Expense-driven aids are, you know, you spend a certain amount of money on transportation, knowing you're getting 83% of it back. You spend a certain number on capital project, knowing you're getting it back. You spend a certain number on BOCES bill, knowing you're getting a certain amount back. He wanted to end that and just put it all in one bucket and not base it on any future expenses, which would change the way we did business for sure. But again, it's not even an issue this year. I just remind you about some of the things we used to have to worry about that we don't have to this year. She has already put, Governor Hochul has already put in her executive budget that all the expense-driven aids are fully funded. And there's a slew of other things that are in there that, you know, until they become final and until we realize what it impacts us, and some of it doesn't really impact us, I didn't think it was really necessary to share with everybody right now. But 2 that I thought were important were the bottom 2, and they both address teacher shortage and really employee shortage. Right? So the first one is certification flexibility. They're trying to figure out a way to get teachers in classrooms without all of the paperwork and the things that they have to do, which are really, I mean, they're important, but in the time that we're in right now, they're just looking to have some temporary flexibility to that. I will say, Jim Baldwin, who's now the deputy commissioner, was on the thing this morning as well. The commissioner and deputy commissioner did a presentation, and they said they weren't really supportive of that one. I mean, and their reasoning was obviously sound, that they want qualified, certified teachers in every classroom in front of students, but if they're not available, having some flexibility to getting people who are still qualified but maybe not have the full certification at this point, getting some flexibility, that will certainly be helpful. And then the last one is also to address that, which is the retiree income waiver, which if you don't know, right now if you retire, you have a maximum income you can make in the public sector of $35,000, right? So we have, I just saw a retired math teacher at the high school when I was there today, and she's subbing a little bit, and I saw a monitor who's also retired who was subbing, and we were talking about this, because they can't make more than $35,000. So as they're doing their work, you know, they have to keep an eye on that number, and that's, you know, $35,000 for a calendar year. This income waiver, if it goes through, again, this is just the governor's proposal, would waive that for 2 years, to June 2024. So someone could be retired or could retire and still work and get their full salary, right? They could get their pension and get their full salary. So, you know, when we saw that, we immediately started thinking of the areas that we have a hard time filling teacher-wise, right? Special education, math, Spanish, any of our foreign language things, and those are hard things to fill. If we could get a retired teacher who has his or her pension right now, who could come back and get a full salary plus her pension, I mean, we might be able to talk some of our retirees to come in. I immediately thought of a few that might come back for a year or two, knowing that they get their pension and they get their salary. So, again, that hasn't been passed yet, but I think that will be really, really great for us if it does get passed. Tax cap, so we were talking a little bit about fiscally responsible. We always say our 2% is not necessarily 2%, but this year actually the CPI is 2%. Our tax cap, you know, once you get the 2%, then there's different calculations that make it go up and down. Mainly for us, it goes down to 1.17, and that's mainly due to pilots. I don't know if you want to explain that a little better, but is that good enough?
So,
How about to get a drink of water?
pilots or payments in lieu of taxes, which are agreements made by the IDAs for development. As pilots rise, which ours have been rising, it drives down your tax cap calculation. So in essence, any increase in pilots goes to reduce the tax levy. It doesn't really count as additional revenue for the district. So it's good for the taxpayer, and that drives down that calculation. So it's not just simply 2%. There's other factors as well, but that's the primary factor.
So our tax cap will come out, and you know, Adam's still doing some calculations, so by the end of this month, we'll know by, you know, what, and actually probably by the next meeting, which will give you a draft one, we'll have that more in place, but certainly by the end of the month. And 1.17 for us is about a little over 400,000 in additional revenue if we went out. 1.17, we can talk about that as we get further along. I think we're in a spot, I said before, to be fiscally responsible and to, you know, really keep our taxpayers in mind. And I don't think we need to go out for that at all, but we can talk about that later. There's our history. Again, I'm really proud of that. Not just under the tax cap each time, because I think most districts are doing that, but if you look at the last 5 years there, from the 0 and 6 years, from the 0 and 16, 17, I mean, you know, we're talking about 2, 3, 5% over 6 years. 5% increase, total increase over those 6 years. That, you know, it's really, we've really, I think, done a great job. The board's done a great job keeping the taxpayers in mind. I think they appreciate that. Again, we've got some time to do it. We've got to have a draft 1 and draft 2, and we'll see if we need more than that. But I anticipate us being, the board obviously decides that, but I think we can give them a 0 again with the money that we have right now, without hurting our future, right? That's the thing you always have to be careful of, right? If you go 0, and people that have been on board a long time know, and I think last year Ms. Fitch was really scared of going 0 because she remembered what happened, but we're in a different place, right? We're in a different place, especially with the foundation aid phase-in that's being promised. I think it's the least we can do for our taxpayers. And remember back, probably, of course I said 4 years ago, and Donna Fitz said 8, so this one might be 8 too, but it was a time when I was superintendent, and I was meeting with the Capital Region Chamber of Commerce with Schenectady and Albany, and we put together, we had some lobbyists, we put together something to try to get us to just be 3-year phase-in. This was a while ago, right? Schenectady, Albany, and Troy. We're trying to, you know, treat ourselves like a big city, comparing ourselves to, you know, Yonkers and those other big city districts. And we were looking for that. And at the time, we said, look, if you can give us this money, we probably can go 0s for a while. So again, we can talk about that, but I think that's something that I'll suggest as we get further along. So that's it. Draft 1 will be at the February 16th board meeting. Again, we got input from all the principals and administrators, and we'll come with some ideas on that. We have our revenue sources from the executive budget that we'll use. Those aren't the final numbers, so we'll have to do some tweaking after that. And the vote is May 17th. That motto has never been more important, right? With what everybody's going through the last 2 years. We're doing it together, and we're really proud of that. Questions? Okay. Questions from the crowd? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
November and December financials, Ms. Schweitzer, please.
Okay, so November, December feel like they were forever ago, but budget transfers during this month were minimal. The auditor reviewed 619 claims, totaling $14.5 million. We've kept him busy. In the general fund, we're going to start projecting for January, so you'll see them in the next month. There really was nothing in these months that was unexpected in revenues or expenditures. We're right in line with prior years. School lunch is, you'll see, running financially well. We're paying invoices, which is new this year for us, paying more, so the expenditures are up, but it's where we expect. Grants have been approved and payments are steadily coming in, and all of our accounts are reconciled.
Any questions? Thank you. A motion on the floor for approval of minutes from January 19th, 2022.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent's recommendation, human resources staff matter, unclassified and classified. Under unclassified, motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 through 11.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Superintendent's recommendation, HR staff matters, classified, consent agenda items 1 through 4.
Second?
Discussion?
Okay, was it 1 through 6? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, second.
I'm gonna take back your second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion on the floor, superintendent recommendations for programs, consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Second.
There's your 6. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Summer, I saw your name on the agenda this time, so I'm just, sorry about the last time. Motion on the floor for superintendent's recommendation, business finance, consent agenda items 1 and 2.
Second.
All those, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Geez, that's the end. That's the end of my agenda. Yeah, district announcements, future meetings, February 16th, School 2, 6 o'clock, budget discussion, where we get to hear Mr. Carmelo all over again. March 2nd, back here, and once again, we get to hear Mr. Carmelo all over again. And then again on March 16th, but that is only if it's necessary.
Correct.
Okay, at 6 o'clock.
We're all hoping.
Yeah, it can't wait, we'll do pop.
You know what?
What was that?
You know what?
Our good news, our first cohort of Smart Scholars at Troy High are taking college form through HVCC during a working lunch with instructor Chrissy Smith. Last Friday, they submitted their first college assignment. In sports news, I feel like I should have something on. Bowling, 11th grader Olivia DeCitas is bowling on an average score of 214, which is the highest average among all girls in the section right now. She is also being looked at by Division I Nebraska for a full scholarship. That's awesome. 11th grader Nate Vela had the highest series in the section with the 797 bowl and bowled over 3 games. God, I could bowl for a month when I get that. The boys varsity basketball team recently had 3 big league wins, beating Saratoga, Guilderland, and Schenectady. Hey, nice. Nice to hear the boys varsity up and running again. The THS cheerleading team placed 3rd at the cheerleading competition at Saratoga High School. So congratulations to all of them. And motion on the floor. Oh, is there anything else?
I have one quick thing. So our Troy CYO team, our program, they run a basketball program every year, and they've been coming through me to get the flyers to our elementary schools, and they were really happy to tell me Sunday that we had 108 new students this year. So we're really happy for you guys to get those flyers to the kids' book bags. And they did, girls all were free too this year, so they had to add like an additional 6 teams. So that's thank you guys.
Yeah,
And just so that the principals that are out there, Jason's gonna be reaching out to you. He's speaking through me. I need good news, and the best place to deliver it is here. And if I could deliver it first, it's just one more thing that we have in the district. So, and there's a lot of great things going on in our district, and we really wanted to promote it here. So, thank you. Motion on the floor to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. Who wants to talk about going home? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?